bear with me and I'll use the strongest voice I can. And just take a few moments to share with you a very historic occasion, historic breakthrough, and to ask you to join with me in congratulating one another. I think this has been one of the most cohesive, cooperative, dynamic, effective caravans we've ever done. And you ought to give yourselves a hand. We thank all of you because each one of you made a very unique and specific contribution to the whole, and it was our total effort that broke the blockade today. And so all of you are to be congratulated. I love every one of you, and I appreciate your commitment, your discipline, and your willingness to put yourselves on the line for what we believed in. Still believe in it. Throughout the week, we've been recognizing other people, expressing appreciation to the various component parts of this caravan. And I don't think I've taken the opportunity to tell you how proud and pleased I am to be the director of an organization with two wonderful, very intelligent, very personable, warm, hardworking, uncomplaining, creative, beautiful staff as Corinne and Gail. And I am sure that they would agree that we are equally well represented in three other places right now. The staff that we have in Chicago and in New York, and the two staff members who are doing the same type of job they've been doing here in San Diego. But in San Diego, there are perhaps 50 Caravanistas, so they've carried a double responsibility. They haven't slept much. I know they didn't sleep last night unless they snuck about an hour. So if they look sleepy today, understand why. Don't ask too much of them because they might get grumpy. You might get your head snapped off. No, they're wonderful, and I'm just pleased and proud to have staff people like this to work with. I do want to ask that you make the rest of this trip to Montreal as smooth, as effective as you've made these days of preparation. Whatever they ask you to do, do it. Be cooperative, be disciplined, be on time. Make life easy for them, because we want to keep them around a long time. Yeah. All right. If there are any of you here who owe money, pay up. If there are any of you who can pitch in and do some of the tasks, just do it voluntarily. Be good self-starters. And all of you who are going to Cuba, we look forward to seeing you in Cuba when we arrive. I think you'll arrive a little before those of us from San Diego. So keep the fire burning, keep the lights on, and we'll be there about 4 o'clock in the morning on Sunday.
We'll be there for you.
Great. Let me say one other thing. A number of you have asked, why do you think we got through today. What happened? What's the significance of it? Our two chief lawyers, New York and one who lives in Puerto Rico, but who has been close to this work, both of them. The lawyer in Puerto Rico is the most effective, experienced grand jury lawyer in the country, in the US. And they have watched and they have been in communication with the government officials, federal attorneys, members of the Treasury Department, and their take on this is that last year's campaign was a high watermark. The impact on them of the fast, and not just the fast, but the campaign that was built around that fast, made them to know that they're really dealing with a groundswell of popular opposition to the blockade, and that in a real sense, we represent the majority will of the United States public. And even though they still have this despicable job to do, they have grown to have a certain kind of respect for you and for your counterparts around the country and around the world. They have come to know that this is an international movement. They were stung last year, not just by the disciplined, resolute, continuous campaign by those in the United States, but from around the world. They took note of the fact that when they took 400 computers that were being carried by US citizens, citizens in other countries in the world joined together and filled the gap by committing to Cuba 1,400 computers. And they saw that there is such a deep commitment in this movement that there is literally nothing we will do, nothing that we will allow to prevent us from continuing to express our solidarity with Cuba. And because of that, they reached a new level of respect for this movement. And they, our lawyers, have reasoned, secondly, that because of their own intelligence, they knew that this caravan had taken as its theme a caravan for children, and that they could not stand the public relations black eye of stopping a caravan for children, especially in light of the fact that the Treasury Department is now reeling from the revelations of its own agents taking bribes from narcotics traffickers in Mexico. They've been stung by that. And they're fighting to try to clean up their image. So what you saw today was a little bit of damage control, as well as respect for a movement that has acquitted itself as well as we have. I think we have to add to those speculations that the government knew that there was no way that we would allow them to take and keep this aid, that we would do what we did last year. That would mean perhaps a 9-month or 12-month campaign, an attack upon their credibility. And they reasoned that in the face of a people united who would not be defeated, they could limit the damage to their image by allowing us to go through, looking the other way, having one day of negative media, rather than stopping us and knowing how capable we are of giving them a full year of negative media and then getting the aid on top of that. But whatever the reason, what we have to do is claim our victory. We have to know that we stood up against the strongest nation in the world. We met them at the bridge. We looked eyeball to eyeball, and they blinked. We have to know that if we use the boxing analogy, we're in this for the championship, no matter how many rounds it takes. And we've been slugging it out with them, and we've won every round. And so they decided not to come out for the 7th round. And therefore, we have to know that we have just executed a technical knockout of the United States government. But the implications cannot be lost on us. The implications of what happened today are mind-boggling. We, with their full knowledge, took prescription medicines, computers at the higher level of 386s, Pentiums, and we said to them we were taking them. And when they said, go anyway, we insisted at that border that they go on record, audio and tape recording, that they were telling us to go. They didn't want to give it up, but we got their little speech. It's not a long speech, but it's significant. It says, based on your communications with the Department of the Treasury, we sent them the same list of aid that we sent to everybody. You and your entire caravan may proceed across the bridge. Well, our board members who are here met yesterday. When it began to be clear that this might conceivably happen, and we were not prepared to fully believe it, even as we said to you, but one of the conclusions that our board came up with is that if indeed we make the historic breakthrough that we've made today, that we ought then to declare the floodgates of aid open and appeal to all of the churches, the labor unions, the educational organizations, all of the solidarity organizations. Unfortunately, there are some of those who have joined in track 2 by asking the government for permission, for a license to take aid. Now is the time. Now is the time. Now is the time for us to say to all of them, we don't have to ask permission. And if we all got together and did a massive caravan, we could fill up a whole boatload of aid in Canada and in Mexico. We could have thousands of people marching across the border, saying to the U.S. government, to hell with your blockade. We will not be intimidated. We will not be complicit in a policy of death. Do what you will to us, but we will fight you and we will win. And let that be the message that we take back home and around the world.